Great morning, my friends. It's Dragon. What you're about to hear is an episode that comes from a series that we do called One from the Vault. One from the Vault is when we go back into the halls of the Rise Up with Dragon show, which had well over 200 episodes, and we pull some of the most relevant, meaningful perspectives on how we can change the way that we look at things. So enjoy yourself. This is One from the Vault from the Rise Up with Dragon show.
Great morning, world! Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon!
Great morning. Are you afraid to sing? It's a good idea to sing every now and then. One of the things that I know is that Dragon doesn't have a good singing voice, but that doesn't stop me from singing. I love to sing. I just tried not to do it in the presence of other people with the hopes of not bothering people when I sing. But I love to say great morning. Great morning, world. Very excited about this day. You know, this whole concept of rising up and doing all this stuff, very often it comes in very handy as a way of getting out of a funk. I would say most of the time I wake up with some form of like immediate victim status, like, oh no, I don't know, concern or worry. I mean, who knows what's really going on when we sleep, but I just find that I wake up in some sort of a reactive mode and I use the whole rise up. That's just a way of just winning the morning. That's the whole concept of it. I did it in the 15 Days of Discipline and also it's in my book. But today I woke up and it was just like cartoon birds flew on my hands and Julie Andrews skipped through the room and just said, oh, what a beautiful morning. I actually can sing, maybe. Very blessed, you know, that every now and then, if you're open to it, the universe just hooks you up and just says like, you're going to have an amazing day today effortlessly. You're not even going to have to work for it. I'm still going to work for it, but you're not going to have to work for it as much as you usually do. Why wouldn't any day be recognized as a beautiful day, right? We actually get to decide that. Today's Rise Up, it's a special one. They're all special, but this one I really just like. Sometimes when I rise up in the morning and I read and I go through this whole thing and then I start to write. And I usually do it on my phone. And sometimes I just go like Matrix wise, I just like dive down the rabbit hole and I just start writing. And usually I'll go upstairs and I'll be like, when I wake Chicken up and bring her coffee and stuff, which is part of my Rise Up, I'll just be like, oof, Dragon went deep today, you know? And this is one of those moments. So it's my hope that what I say brings value to you today. You know, the whole concept of inviting people into the greatness factory is to bring people into this world where you can be sheltered for a moment from all of the outside in stuff that's destroying you and just really work on that wet piece of meat for a little while and open up and entertain the idea of thinking about some really cool stuff and maybe having a breakthrough today and advancing, moving the ball down the field. So today I call this NI, N as in Nancy, I, natural intelligence. So before I get into that Rise Up, here's a cool thought. I mean, I think that it's cool. So I can't like define and say that it's a cool thought. You'll be the judge of that, but I think it's a cool thought. Do we consciously make decisions? Think about what I just said. When you make a decision, do you consciously make that decision or do we consciously observe a decision that was made unconsciously? Interesting, because what I've been noticing, I've just been evaluating my own behavior and others, and I notice that most everything I do is on autopilot, and whether or not I choose to be conscious that day is whether or not I choose to become aware of what I'm doing. You know, that whole saying, forgive them for they know not what they do. You know what I think that means is they're doing things without being aware of them. So I'm thinking like, if I'm aware of something I did, keyword did, what is it that made me do it? It's unconscious behavior. And I think that's pretty cool as we look into this idea that if 95% of everything that happens in our life or our perceptions and our actions, because our biggest goal in life is not to stop things from happening. It's about how we react to them and stuff. So if we know that 95% of all that stuff is unconscious, what's cool about playing with this idea before I get into the Rise Up is while I'm in my little 5% conscious state, which I'm in right now with you, and I don't know if you're there with me right now, but right now I'm conscious about this conversation. For the next 15, 20 minutes, I'll probably go unconscious about a lot of things, but right now I'm conscious. And while you're in that 5% conscious state, you have the ability, like clay, to sculpt over time with consistency, you're unconscious. So what's cool is if I know that everything is happening for the most part unconsciously, but I create an unconscious state that serves me and moves me forward. Wow, that's pretty cool. So let's get into this. Let's get into the deepness. So been fascinated with the idea of defining what consciousness is and what constitutes whether or not someone or something possesses consciousness. You hear me talk about this all the time, and the idea is like, so we have this thing in our skull, which I call the wet piece of meat. All of a sudden, we're aware of things. Like, how does that even work, right? Because if you look at it, it just looks like meat. It's got water in it and stuff, but all of a sudden. So I just love the idea of like, what is consciousness? Can you like identify it? Can you see it, right? State of being and all that. But how do we determine whether or not someone or something? Because I take my cats all the time, because supposedly cats don't know that they exist, right? So they look in the mirror and they don't always get excited about seeing themselves. They might like flicker at something. So can humans, plants, trees, and even robots, can all of those things exhibit consciousness? So when I started thinking about that, I started saying, whoa, right? So this took me down this rabbit hole of artificial intelligence. I don't know if you're into artificial intelligence, but that's the whole idea of like a robot, not only responding, but like actually exhibiting feelings and saying like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, JC. Let me get you a cup of water. I know you like a cup of water at 4:00. So I think that's fascinating. So I just went down that rabbit hole in relation to this Rise Up, and boom, there was my thought of the day. And that's what I'm here to do. Is I'm here in the Greatness Factory to invite you guys to play around with what I thought about. So I call it natural intelligence. In looking at my own consciousness, I can definitely tell you that I can't remember. This is fun to do. I cannot remember for the life of me the moment that I became conscious of stuff. Ask yourself that question. What was the moment that you experienced consciousness for the first time? Was I conscious as a baby? Like some people say, well, I remember being a baby, I don't really. Was I conscious as a baby or a newborn or in utero, or when I became fertilized, right? Thanks, mom and dad, and formed what's called the primitive streak, which ends up turning into the brain and the spinal cord. Like, was there consciousness there? As soon as life was created, is there consciousness, right? Well, I don't remember experiencing it, so I can't really tell you that. But you get my point. I can pretty much tell you that before I was conscious, I wasn't. I think that's pretty funny to think about. So therefore, how did it first happen? And how was it influenced? And was it influenced by outside forces? So I have this system inside of me with this wet piece of meat. Let's just look at it for a second. This thing inside of me, this wet piece of meat, and all of a sudden it becomes aware of stuff and begins to express feelings and reactions and opinions and evolves from there. Like, how does that happen? So is my conscious state and how I am aware and see things affected by my surroundings and my programmer? Think about that word programmers. I talk about that a lot. So our conscious state, like my ability to be aware of things, is it affected by outside-in forces and my programmers, i.e. my MFTP, my mother, father, teacher, preacher? Of course it is. Of course it is. In fact, just being conscious of the fact that your consciousness is impacted by outside forces is fun to do. So how is our perceived consciousness any different than a tree's, or better yet, a robot with some form of artificial intelligence? Do you know that there's studies right now that show that like two trees, and they can actually be a different, breed of trees, a different form, like a birch and like an elm or something. Do you know that two trees will actually help one another out with like whatever it is that they need? They will actually help each other out. So there's some research that says that trees have consciousness, or plants and things like that. I mean, look at the Venus flytrap. Do you know that a Venus flytrap, you know what that is? It's that plant that like can eat flies and stuff. Do you know the Venus flytrap will not close until 2 of its follicles are touched? And that's how it knows that something is alive in there. So it'll never close up if just like a little piece of pollen goes in there. So is that a little bit similar to what is going on with us? So I started looking at that idea of robots and artificial intelligence, and it kind of all looked the same to me, doesn't it? So one system might be more complex. Like we always think that our wet piece of meat is more complex than anything. And I'm going to challenge that in a second. And advanced. But do you see the similarities? So I find it funny that we look at robots, that form of intelligence and consciousness, as what we call artificial. And we only do that because it wasn't created like us. Isn't it funny how humans call everything that's not created like us artificial, right? And we have a tendency of calling each other artificial when they're not acting like us. Artificial is a funny word, isn't it? Is anything man-made artificial? Because if a man makes a robot, does that make it artificial because it wasn't made like us? So is a robot like Splenda, right? Is that what it means, like artificial? And I just think that that's so funny to look at like Splenda and say that's artificial sweeteners. Like that's artificial intelligence. Are you guys following me at all? Deep thoughts with Dragon. Aren't we all man-made? Or man and woman made? I'm interested in the advancement and broadening of my consciousness. This is where I'm at, my conscious state, and gaining the abilities to better understand things. That's what I'm all about. I'm open and interested in gaining the abilities to better understand things and evolve to a higher expression of myself with the goal of becoming more useful and impactful during my short little stint as a meat suit on planet Earth. That's what I'm all about. So I love talking about this stuff, and I hope you do too. So I'm observing my conscious state, improving and opening it up as a result of the self-endured programming that I'm doing. Think about that for a second. Self-programming. What does that mean? It means that I'm selecting, because I'm in control of my program now. Before I knew this, when I was asleep and when I was unconscious, I didn't know how much I was impacted by outside in, mother, father, teacher, preacher programming. And it actually formed much of who I became. But then I realized that I'm actually the programmer. I'm the bouncer at the door that decides who gets in and who gets out. So self-programming means I'm selecting what comes in and stays. And remember, everything gets a chance at coming in, good and bad, supportive and unsupportive. So I'm in charge of what comes in and stays and what comes in and goes. Thanks, but no thanks, including voices, as well as the new programmers that I allow in my life, i.e. mentors, friends, and life experiences that I therefore have. So I kind of see a similarity here. I don't know about you, but I see a similarity between my brain and let's say Google's search engine. Think about that for a second. Does Google's search engine have consciousness? Well, it depends on what you think consciousness is. I look at this in two ways. We're fully programmable. And I'm in control now of the programming, but I'm programmable. And if my game is off, I'm in a reactive, almost victim status, aren't I, of the programming, right? But I'm programmable. I can create discipline. I can create memory. If I meet you one day and say the wrong thing, the next time I meet you, I'll know not to say it. I'm learning on the fly. I'm fully programmable, and so are you. And if you embrace that, man, you can do anything in the world and in control now of that programming. And since I'm not considered artificial by them, whoever them is, right? I mean, I can be artificial, but I'm not considered artificial. Well, I guess I'm natural intelligence. That's where I came up with that idea. As according to human beings, my conscious state would be natural intelligence, right? So things that make you go, So how is this useful for you today? Because I'm offering this to you today, and hopefully it'll be useful. And I always appreciate when you push the share button, not for me to get more popular, but just to invite somebody else into the greatness factory, just to take a break in the 24 hours today and think about something useful. We got people here in Singapore right now. What's up, Sam? Or actually Hong Kong. Acknowledge the power that you hold in staying within the realm of things that you can control and how you are the chief programmer of your intelligence and conscious state. Accept nothing. Here's my offer to you. Accept nothing but forward-moving and supportive programming in your life. Bouncer at the door. You go, you stay. Sorry, you're not on the list. And yes, Artificial intelligence is real, and it's already here, and you and I are not much different than it. I think a nice thing to do as a human being, and it helps you kind of revert back into this calm state. I'm going to refrain today from thinking that I'm so special and more special than other things. I'm just another thing that happens to just be aware right now with my wet piece of meat. I'm just going to completely remove myself from thinking that how special I am. If you think about it, the most advanced form of technology is fascinating. I do a chapter on this in my book. It's going to flip the world upside down. It's so powerful, and I'm going to tease it right now. If you think about it, the most advanced form of technology and intelligence, it's not your brain, and it's not your iPhone, and it's not some sort of circuitry, and it's not even quantum physics or technology and robotics. It's not. Now, you're right now saying, well, he's about to talk some shit. Maybe. I'm always open to that, and that's definitely happened before. Those are not the most advanced forms of technology. It's all around us, and it's been here way before we set foot or paw on this planet, and it's slowly making a comeback as we notice man-made tech is getting smaller and smaller to the point where it's going to disappear. Do you know that technology is moving in a direction where it is going to become invisible and unveil the most advanced form of technology and intelligence? And what is it? It's nature. Get back to nature today, everybody. Get back to nature. Take your shoes off and go walk in the grass today and get grounded. And just observe the amazing, adaptive, conscious, evolving, can't get rid of it state of nature. What am I in gratitude for today? Nature. I'm giving it up for nature today. I'm going to just completely observe and appreciate nature today. And by the way, just in case you're wondering, it ain't going to be found on TV. Take your shoes off, get dirty today, roll around just like you did when you were a kid. Love and appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. And if you learned something today, give it away. That's how it's going to stay.